the river took everything. This is a story I've never told anyone in full. But I feel like I have to now, before the whispers of the river come for me too. It's about Ayuba, a man who had it all and lost it in ways you wouldn't believe. Ayuba wasn't just any businessman. In our small Nigerian town, he was the guy you envied. Sharp suit, smooth words, a booming import business. He had a wife, Binta, who was the kind of woman other women would say, she's too good for him. And they weren't wrong. Binta was the heart of their home, always there, always loving, even when Ayuba wasn't. Everyone knew Ayuba's flaws. He couldn't stick to one woman. His friends teased him, called him man of many appetites, and he wore it like a badge. But Binta, she never said a word. Maybe she hoped he'd change. Maybe she believed he could. And then came Nino. It was during the rainy season. Ayuba said he met her one evening after locking up his shop. There had been heavy rains, and the river was swollen, roaring like it had something to prove. That's where he saw her. Standing knee-deep in the water, a woman so beautiful it almost had to look at her. She smiled at him. Not a regular smile, the kind that makes you feel seen in a way you didn't even know you wanted. Her hair hung like black silk, her skin seemed to glow under the moonlight, and her voice. He said it was like the river itself was speaking. Come closer, she called. He did. Of course he did. Ayuba didn't tell anyone about Nino at first. He started sneaking out at night, saying he had late meetings or business trips. He'd drive to the river and sit with her for hours, listening to her laugh, watching her move. She was perfect, and she made him feel like he was the center of the universe. But Binta noticed the change. She always noticed. Where are you going every night? She asked one evening. Her voice was soft, no accusation, just worry. Ayuba brushed her off, said she was imagining things. A week later, Binta fell sick. It started with a cough, then shortness of breath. Doctors couldn't explain it. They said her lungs were fine, her heart was fine, but she kept getting worse. Ayuba. He should have been there. He should have held her hand, stayed by her side. But instead, he was by the river, with Nino. The night Binta died, Ayuba wasn't even in town. He'd driven to a distant riverbank because Nino said she wanted to show him something special. When he came back and heard the news, he broke. For a moment, we thought he'd change. He stopped going to the river, stopped smiling that cocky smile of his. But grief has a way of making people do strange things. And when his business started falling apart, he went back to her. First, his biggest warehouse burned down. No one could figure out how the fire started. Then customs seized a massive shipment of his goods, claiming the papers were fake. Within weeks, Ayuba's empire was in ruins. He went to Nino, desperate. I've lost everything, he told her. Her laughter echoed over the water, sharp and cold. Not everything, she said. You still have me. That's when he finally understood. Nino wasn't just a woman. She wasn't human. She was something ancient, something that lived in the water and thrived on desire and destruction. He tried to leave her, to break away, but she wasn't done with him. The hauntings began. At night, he'd wake up gasping, his lungs filled with the choking taste of river water. Mirrors in his house fogged up, dripping with moisture, even when it hadn't rained. Sometimes, he'd hear Binta's voice, faint and full of sorrow, calling his name. He went to an elder in the village, a man known for dealing with spirits. The old man listened quietly as Ayuba spilled his story. When Ayuba finished, the elder shook his head. You made a deal with the river, he said. And the river always takes more than it gives. Is there a way out? Ayuba begged. The elder gave him one warning, stay away from the water. Don't look back. But know this, once the river chooses you, it never lets go. Ayuba doesn't go near water anymore. Not the river, not the ocean, not even rain. He barely speaks to anyone. His once proud house is falling apart, damp and cold, like the river has claimed it too. But every year, on the anniversary of Binta's death, people say they hear splashing near his house. Some say they've seen a woman with hair like black silk standing by his gate.